All right. Opinion is bitterly divided on the relationship between morality, creative arts, and something called moral code of conduct. Long we have been a republic, we have gone back and forth on what constitutes morally acceptable behavior. It gets even more slippery when you include content creation. We have argued the standards by content creators need to be regulated, checked, and even reined in because they claim minds are being corrupted by dirty content. On the other hand, others are contending that the question of morality is relative because what you may consider moral is in fact immoral to someone else. This brings us to the key question tonight. What exactly constitutes morality and who should police it? And do we even need to have someone to police it? So we have the best guest for this show tonight, Kenya Film and Classification Board CEO Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, who will be presenting his thoughts and ideas, and Dr. Alex Awiti, Vice Provost of Aga Khan University, will help us make sense of all this with all due respect. And I have a host of content creators who want to chime in and give us their thoughts and opinions on this program. We should start where we should. All right, Karibuni, gentlemen and ladies on the call. Let's start where we should. Should we have this moral debate first?
Absolutely. Absolutely, James. For the simple reason that civilization, since time immemorial, if you want to say from the beginning of time, rise or fall on the basis of their moral foundation. A set of code or principles that govern our behavior, interaction, and how we are organized as a society. And we choose voluntarily to follow those codes, how we interact with one another, how we behave, and what is acceptable and what is not. A sense of right and wrong. And from where I sit, these are issues that are pushed by the media, by entertainment, by the arts, the creative arts. To a very great extent, they shape opinions, they influence behavior, they make you hate some people, love others, and therefore to a very great extent, what we consume in terms of content through music, through films, through media, informs or shapes to a very great extent what kind of a society we are. So that's how society is organized, with a set of rules and behavior. Short of that, it's a catch of anything goes. So where do you place then integrity? How do we even say that we can now go into what is now prescribed in the laws and the constitutions? It begins with that morally acceptable code of behavior.
But according to who?
According to the people. You see, people is not a geographical location. A country is not a geographical location. It is people living within a certain area with acceptable, shared values, cultures, and beliefs. They agreed to live that way. That's why we are Kenya and not Uganda. That's why we are not Tanzania. We might have shared values, but the reason we are Kenyans is because we agreed as a people living within a geographical territory, this is what is going to be our set of rules and behavior. And when you go, you veer off the rails, we say, then you are wrong. And there can be consequences, including applying the law, including jailing people, including rewards and punishment.
When I said you're coming to this show tonight, I had a massive response, and you've seen it.
What did people say?
People asked why I'm hosting Deputy Jesus.
Oh.
Do you know you're being called Deputy Jesus?
I find it really, what do I call it? Blasphemous. I think it's a term you can only give if you don't prescribe to Christianity and you don't know what it means or who Jesus is. Nevertheless, it's also scriptural that those of us who follow Jesus, then we are like him. But on a serious note, I think people tried the moral cop. They thought it would come out as, dogmatic, intolerant. It didn't work. Now they moved to Deputy Jesus. I think we can leave that aside. Okay. I treat it to be a tag that is put on me by jokers and idlers on social media.
Right.
Honestly.
Yes.
And I think you should not glorify it.
Okay.
Serious media should be separate from social media. That should be the domain of any kind of debate. But out of it, we can sift now and say this is what is serious. The reason they say that is because of the firmness with which we apply these principles, particularly in our area of regulation is Kenya Film Classification Board. Because we take the job we have been given to be so critical to national development that if we allow our kids to watch pornography, to watch violent movies, to watch homosexual films, that defies their culture, and they grow up without a culture. And we believe that by applying these laws firmly, we are doing a government job, and we are doing a duty to our country.
I want to come back to the work of case, but I want first to go to the moral question where we started, yes. Right? And this is just setting the stage. And Dr. Alex Awiti, as we have Dr. Ezekiel Mutua saying about prescribed set of laws and acceptable behavior that we've agreed as Kenyans, right? When did we agree as Kenyans to have these moral codes? And what is even the moral code of Kenya, if you like?
Yeah, I guess this is a very interesting debate, and I think we need to be very careful about how we apply the terminology. One thing is clear, we are first and foremost a secular society. We're a secular country. We are not an Islamic or Christian republic. So that creates within itself an enormous amount of fluidity on the basis of how an ethical structure in society is created, which is the firmament around which a moral sense of being ensues. And the reason I say that is because ethics is what is codified and usually ensue out of religion. They can come out of professional organizations such as the medical ethic, etc., etc. Religious canons prescribe that. Abrahamic faiths are kind of unified in the sense that they define a certain bound of ethical expectations. Now, out of that, you then create a context in which a moral basis, which is personal principles of good or wrong or right, are founded. So in a sense, you cannot legislate morality, in a sense. Morality evolves, and there is such a thing as moral absolutism or moral relativity. And that's why you see society is there's a broad spectrum. There's certain things like homosexuality now is the law of the land in the United States. Same-sex marriages are legal in many of the states in the United States, for instance. And here we cringe, for instance, at that. So I think we need to look at that whole panoply. And I think what is critical is that over time, there is a certain structure of ethical orientation, which then allows some moral perspectives to become dominant. And I think that's what Dr. Mutua is talking about. Who are we as Kenyans? Is that founded on the Abrahamic faiths, which is the foundation of the post-colonial heritage.
But that's who are we as Kenyans?
Yeah. So then
there's something there, I think.
So then,
if you allow.
As you start to look at, say, in the post-colonial era, we had, after Christianity came and Islam and other faiths that are really equally significant, then you start to see certain tenets that are oriented to an ethical structure that is organized and can be codified. That's one part. In the pre-colonial society, there were also foundations of just human decency and human being that were accepted, that basically formed those societies that are not terribly deviant from what we see today.
Absolutely.
So there is a foundation there.
Yeah.
That even when you go to your grandfather who could be an animist, but he still has a sense of what is right or wrong that is built out of very consistent foundations of society.
How do we quantify that? Yeah. And there's something Dr. Witter said that I needed to correct. Yeah. Yes, we are a secular society, but we are not godless.
No, we're not.
We're actually very religious.
Yeah.
A professor called John Peter, I think, said Africans are notoriously religious. Out of research and out of publications and knowledge.
But with all due respect, that is not law.
Well, it's not law. I was coming to that. I was saying we codify this in our constitutions and the law. The first words in our constitutions, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, one of the most progressive documents, legislative constitutional documents anywhere in the world. The first words say, we the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of God Almighty of all creation. We chose to write it that way. It's not my creation. We chose to have it that way. And the preamble of the Constitution is the philosophical paradigm, is the foundation upon which the other chapters, articles. No, this is serious.
I agree.
I'm trying to frame what Doctor said, because we are saying the same thing, that out of what people went through, a process of constitutional making, decided that the preamble of our constitution will read, we the people of Kenya acknowledging the supremacy of God.
It also says we are a secular society.
It does. Yeah. Therefore, but I was saying the bearing of all the other articles. I mean, if you are a researcher and this guy is a top academician, when you set the preamble, what you are saying is the rest of the articles in this document, in this publication, will be premised on this type of thinking.
I agree, but help me understand it. It says we acknowledge the existence of God, yes, but then it also says we are a secular society.
Then it goes on to state the law, and that's why I was saying, for example, he has mentioned homosexuality, says in the US, it is the way of life. Yes, because that is the US. I go to South Africa a lot. We have a partnership with our counterpart in South Africa. When we go there, we don't tell them to regulate the way we regulate, because their constitution allows homosexuality. But if you chose to live in Kenya, to do business in Kenya, you have to apply the laws of the land, whether in the media, in the creative economy, or whether you are a carpenter in the streets. Anyone who lives within that territory agreed that they will be bound. Short of that, James Smart, we're going to have a catch of anything goes. We are not going to have regulations.
My question.
And society becomes ungovernable. And therefore, where we find peace and the tranquility and the coexistence, peaceful coexistence, is when we say, James Smart, if you take my water without my permission, it is called theft. And therefore, there should be rewards and punishment for our conduct.
With all due respect, who should police it? Take a short break. We're coming back. With all due respect.
At 10 p.m. Italy versus Spain.
Check Euro 2020 all 51 matches live and in HD on StarTimes for only $5.99 on basic bouquet. Check Euro 2020 all 51 matches live and in HD on StarTimes for only $5.99 on basic bouquet.
At 10 p.m. Italy versus Spain.
Kamani Bay, ni StarTimes. Get connected today for only $9.99 aerial decoder and $2,699 satellite dish.
StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
You guys have to tweet about this.
What phone is this? Hey, looks good. How much is it?
You haven't heard of the Optiven offer?
No.
I must invest too. Optiven has this amazing offer.
Huh?
If you make a commitment of 900k in any of their value-added projects, you get rewarded with a cool smartphone, bro.
Call us on 0790 300 300.
Just one capful of Dettol is enough to disinfect surfaces and protect your family and your home. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
What do you think about Molfix?
Actually, another brand was recommended to me, but it had a leakage problem. Then I decided to try Molfix. His clothes don't get wet anymore.
Because Molfix provides extra protection against leakage thanks to its anti-leakage elastic barriers. All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
This year, thanks to Notify Mall. Shop from hundreds of online shops at our mega malls along Moi Avenue in Nairobi and Moi Avenue in Mombasa. Notify Mall. All your favorite online brands under one roof.
Did you know Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Did you know Ruiru Mabati Factory offers free delivery countrywide within 72 hours? Call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, Mali Safi kwa bei poa.
Timeless love.
Goodbye, Matty.
Aren't you going to say something?
I don't like her.
Why don't you
like her?
like
No, I don't
her?
like her. I don't like her, all right? I don't like her. Coffee?
Didn't you say you're not my father? Stop all that nonsense! And put it into your head that as long as you're here, you'll live under my rules. And I don't want you to get involved with the daughters of servants from the ranches around. Is that clear? Timeless love.
With all due respect, we are back, and the moral debate is a subject of concern tonight. So you're talking about a bit of the question of the moral question and what is legally acceptable and what is legally not acceptable, and where do we fit in this conversation as a people, as Kenyans, what do we subscribe to, what we haven't. Let's draw the line now. I'm joined by Ray Odanga, who's a lawyer, and he has some thoughts and opinions about the legal questions that we are trying to answer tonight. Ray, we've touched a bit on what the Constitution tells us, and we've touched a bit on the moral code of conduct. Exactly what does the law say about this moral code of conduct?
Yeah, thank you, James. So there's a close correlation between law and morality. So the correlation is that the moral principles of good, justice, and truth are the appliances which are promoted by the rule of law. So both law and morality regulate the conduct of the individual in the society. So for laws to be effective, they must represent the moral ideas of the people. At the same time, good laws sometimes serve to arouse the moral conscience of the people and maintain such good conditions as may encourage the growth of the morality. On another hand, obedience to law depends upon the active support of the moral sentiments of the people. So laws which are not supported by the moral conscience of the people tend to lose meaning in the long run.
So Ray, here's the thing. Do we have a conflict between our laws and the moral code of conduct? Do we have, or we are fine?
Now, if I would like to answer that question in the context of Ezekiel Mutua. If there has to be any law that tend to limit the limitation, that tends to limit the laws for one reason or another, the Constitution is very clear. Any law that tends to meet, and I'm going to talk about freedom of expression, because it's an issue about the creatives now we're going to talk about here. And now Ezekiel Mutua being part of the field, the Society of the Creative, that regulates the industry, there's some things that must be tied to, that must be looked into before a law is passed that tends to limit the freedom of expression. So first of all, any law that tends to limit the freedoms must be provided for by law. That one is under Article 24. First of all, it must also pursue legitimate aim. It must be necessary in an open and democratic society. When talking about the creatives, if you go to the Constitution of Kenya under Article 33, it provides for the elements of freedom of expression. Number one, freedom to seek, receive, and impart ideas or information. We have got freedom of association.
So Ray, I need your help here. Are our laws clear? Do we have any conflict? What are you saying?
Now, the Constitution of Kenya is the supreme law.
So our laws are clear?
And any law...
Our laws are
yes.
clear?
So any
Thank
law,
you.
And any law.
Thank you, Ray. So let's get back to you.
We are saying the same thing. I think what the lawyer is saying is that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. But laws must also take the wider good of society. And that's why there must be wider consultations. If you're making a law, it is a requirement right now of the procedure to a public participation to ensure that by the time you reach, you arrive at that law, you have consulted. And generally, laws represent the majority, because we are in majoritarian democracy. You know, there will be people who are not happy with the law as it is, but it goes through public participation to ensure that we get a sense of majority who are regulated by that law. But allow me to say, James, that the framers of the law from time immemorial, from the days of Hammurabi, the lawgiver, they come from the mindset that human beings are inherently evil and they have the propensity to commit crime and to be immoral. So the law begins with thou shalt not. And therefore any conduct of human beings begins by being regulated from the point of what you should not do. You can do all things but don't do things.
So this is where you come from. This.
That's a law. You see, I've said from the days of Hammurabi, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not take somebody else's property. It begins with the regulation. Because of the fall of man, if you follow the history of man, that man has the propensity to commit crime. And left to his own devices, he will commit crime. That's not me. Those are the framers of the law. That's what most of the law says, thou shalt not. It's more about prohibition and governing. Even what he has talked about, freedom of expression and access to information. Article 33, 34, 35 are not absolute. There is no freedom that is absolute. Absolute freedom would be a recipe for chaos.
So from where you sit, the first job is to prohibit first.
You see, I regulate. Regulation from its very definition is about caveats. It's about saying, fanya hivi. It's about setting the parameters for human conduct within the creative economy.
So how do you answer those who say you're overstepping your mandate?
I follow the law. If you look at the way we have handled all the cases, and since I joined KFCB 5.5 years ago, we have taken on big institutions, including media owners, Kenya Breweries, Safaricom. We went to court. When you differ in the interpretation of the law, civilized people go to court. You don't fight, you don't take machetes, you don't just call each other names. You go to court. We went to court over, for example, let me give you a good case of beer during the watershed. The advertisement, before I joined KFCB, we used to have beer being advertised during the watershed. When I read Cap 222, the Films and Stage Plays Act, I realized there's a principle called the watershed period principle, where all the content aired between 5 in the morning to 10 in the evening on free-to-air TV must be suitable for family viewing and must protect children from exposure to harmful content. I applied that. When we differed with the advertisers, we went to court. That's where we settle things. Same with the film Rafiki. Same with all the people that we have taken to court or have taken us to court. And I believe that's why the court of law are there, to be the arbiters, so that when you interpret it differently and I interpret it differently, we have agreed. We shall go to court. And that's why I was talking about the laws, the nexus between constitutions, legislative frameworks, and the morality. They are two sides of the same coin. You cannot divorce morality from the function of the law and the constitution.
Dr. Alex, you deal with young people a lot, and we have young people coming up with content and gets banned, and, it's told you cannot air this. And what does that do to the side? What does it do to the creative industry?
But then we ban maybe 1%.
Yeah. But you see, I think I still go back to the fundamental question of the dominant structure of society that creates a foundation for ethical formulations, a definition of what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
Both at a personal level and at an institutional kind of religious orientation creates the ethical firmament for those interactions to happen. So we need to consistently understand that in a societal context, there is dynamism, there is change, there is evolution, there's reinterpretation of what morality could be at every given time. You know, we started off very, the United States started off very much like us, and you still see the divide between the conservatives and the Republicans.
Because society is dynamic.
Society is dynamic. The conservatives are still pushing back and saying no gays in our towns, no gays in our workplaces, we worship one God, etc., etc. The liberals come with a very different dimension of a reinterpreted society in a neoliberal context, and clamors at the fundamental elements of freedom, where we, the people, basically aspire to happiness, liberty, and opportunity. Now, when you start to go down that line, you then open up this relative space, the space of relativity. But again, relativity still is contextual. It is not just in a vacuum. What is relative is still contextual. What is relative in the United States is not relative here. In this country, there tends to be some really, what I would say, very, very small degrees of freedom in terms of what the interpretation might be on homosexuality. You will find very, very sharp divisions.
Because like the president says, it's not,
it's
a non-issue.
It's a non-issue.
It's not our way of life.
When President Obama was here, that's what the president said.
Exactly. It's a non-issue because it is okay there, it's not okay here.
So I think we need to consistently remember that there is something that fundamentally defines us as a people. And there's a certain leverage that is at play which defines the ballpark in which we may make some of these interpretations, which then gives Dr. Mutua the context and the legal firmament to basically project when it comes to arbitration where there is difference and interpretation is required that seeks the arbitration of the courts.
Okay, let me get some of the creative thoughts. Who you say 1% of them you've banned,
or maybe less.
Maybe less than 1%.
Look at let me give you the statistics.
Let me get to them and then I'll come back to you.
Yes.
Vivian, good evening.
Yes. Hi.
Karibu to the program. What is your issue with the question of either this content and dirty content and clean content? What's your issue? How can you help us resolve the problems we have with morality, if you like?
I think I'll just start by expressing my respect to the authorities that we have because, authority comes from God and it's important to acknowledge that. So, respect to Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. I know he's not very popular he is popular, but he may not be very loved or very embraced within the entertainment spaces, but he's an authority and authority comes from God. So I do respect that. I think what I would say is that I think the entertainment space from the inception has had a sort of a direction whereby, it's very laissez-faire and it's sort of like the artist does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. And I would say as an artist who's been there in the entertainment space for a couple of years, I don't think that is how it should work. I really believe that all of us have what we offer, and we all need to be open-minded and open-headed in regards to receiving information that edifies. So when it comes to entertainment, I do understand because I am friends with a lot of entertainers. I have been in this space for very many years, but I do believe that ultimately, we both have to create an environment creatively that caters for everyone across the board. So I'm not playing safe, believe it or not, but I really think we can do better than we do. We can have a little bit more respect because there's always room for growth, there's always room for development, and there's always room for knowing more than you think you do, because what you think and what is very two different perspectives. So
thank you.
I really think that's what I would lean in and offer to this discussion.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in and giving your thoughts. Do I have another content creator? All right, okay, we will come back to more. But you're giving statistics of...
Yeah, but thank you, Vivian. That represents also a young person in the creative industry, very eloquent and very well educated. Sometimes we generalize and make it look like every young person is against authority and against government. And I think that's why I was saying the media needs to be careful to balance, so that while you are taking all the views, we don't make it look like everybody's against government, everybody's open.
With all due respect, we brought up the program.
And by the way, I told you, without due respect means you're asking for authority to insult people. But no, it's on a light note. Now, this is the point. Look at it this year. We've signed a performance contract with CS for ICT, where we fall. And we have the number of films that we ought to have authorized or licensed, and also the ones we ought to have classified. I think we are going to about 1,000 right now. This year, we've not banned one. Okay, 1,000 films that are being done in this country. Every day we are getting filmmakers coming into the country, and that's why I was saying the danger of a single story. Sometimes you make people think what Vivian is saying, that Mutua is not popular. We need to focus on the creative economy as a frontier for job creation. And the reason they need the freedom is because they are called creators, they are creatives. And creatives cannot thrive in an environment where every thought that they bring forth is fear and confrontation with the government. Yep. That's not how Hollywood grew. That's not how Nollywood is growing. That's not how Bollywood grew. These things must be seen in the context of the power of the media and the film and entertainment and what they can do to minds, especially the minds of children. And that's our major focus, to protect children from exposure to harmful content. But the other important point, James, is that the law that established the KFCB foresaw that there would be need to regulate film and broadcast content to ensure that they conform to Kenya's culture, values, and aspirations. And so we want more happy stories told. We want African stories based on our culture and our values, because we have a lot of things to celebrate, so that we don't do what I think Ben Okiri, a Nigerian poet, said: if you want to poison a nation, poison their stories. Make them negative. Let people whine and complain and behave like nothing good is happening. And within no time, the society will go to the dogs, because we have promoted the single story, negative story, side shows at the expense of development. And look at it this way. The media houses and the work they do. Sometimes we also accuse the media, and it's not everybody who is corrupt in the media. Not every media house is doing bad, negative stories. So I want us to have a sense of balance that takes us to the point that we can only exist in a healthy manner, in a situation where we protect our basic morality, a sense of right and wrong, so that when we talk of integrity, when we talk about hard work and positive social values like honesty, we promote them in our films, teamwork, resilience. But all those things should be projected in our media.
Here's the thing. Our politicians are not the most integrated people in this country.
What percentage is our politician in this country?
They control 3.6 trillion of our budget. So they control everything.
Yes,
hang on, we will go to that. But let's get to the point where the CEO left. The basic morality and this principle of basic morality, Mwende. Please give us your thoughts and opinion on this question of basic morality. What does it constitute and what does it mean for you? And how should we essentially look at this question?
Thank you for having me, James. I've been listening to the conversation, and I think there are some great points that have been put across. I don't want to go so much into it because, we'll be here all day. But for me, it feels like it's become a philosophical discussion when we start talking about, if man is inherently good or evil, if law was made for the man or man was made for the law, which is, a great discussion if you're, trying to write a thesis or something like that. I think what we need to focus on is what the mandate of the Kenya Film Classification Board is, which is to regulate. And I think one of the issues that I've had, and I've been listening to the conversation, and I keep hearing Dr. Ezekiel Mutua saying that the goal is to ultimately protect children. And I think that we are all on the same page when it comes to protecting children. However, the job of the Kenya Film Classification Board is to classify films so that parents and guardians and broadcasters can know what kind of content is which, because we have content that is for babies, content for teenagers, and then content for adults. So I think that's where I keep having an issue with, because then it seems like there's almost like a push to standardize content so that all content is palatable to children, when really the point is to make sure that you have classification so that children are not watching content that is for adults, not to make it seem that there should not be content that is only for adults. And when we say content for adults, we are definitely not talking about pornography, because that is not what content for adults, when we talk about creativity and film is. We're discussing, content that may have a bit more violence, etc., that adults are, meant to watch, and that is not supposed to be accessible to children. So I feel like using children constantly, it feels like it's almost like, I don't know, it's an excuse to really just, because that's where the issue is. You keep saying you're protecting children. No one has said don't protect children. We are all in agreement that children need to be protected and should not be accessing adult content. But that does not mean that now all content must be palatable to children. There's family content, and then there should be content that I want to watch. One of the things that I think, yes.
Help me understand your point. You're saying the job of KFCB is to classify films and not to ban films.
Yes. And not to ban films, or to sort of like, in as much as Dr. Ezekiel says that they're trying to promote film creation, in a way it doesn't feel that way, because then if you are saying that you don't want certain kinds of content to be made because it's immoral, then you are kind of already setting the standards of the kind of films that you want to be made, even if you're saying that, this creativity, this freedom of creativity.
Great.
And then that content seems to be much more geared towards standardizing content, so that all content is palatable to children. Yeah, children have their own content. I'm an adult. I don't want to watch nursery rhymes, and I don't want to also watch only family-friendly content. There's content. I want to watch action movies that might have more violence in them. I don't expect to be sitting there with a child and watching that content. And I don't want someone to say that that content should not be made because it is not palatable to children. I'm not a child. So classify films and make it known that the films that are for adults, and the films that are for children are for children. And filmmakers or content creators should then know what kind of content they're creating. Because then on other platforms like YouTube, etc., that option is there, where you decide, where you say if this content is for kids.
I get your point. I get your point, and it's very clear. And I want to put it across to you. What's the problem of having different content for different people? That's actually before I go for the break.
There's actually no problem. She's absolutely right. That there are different films, different genres of films and entertainment, and the work of KFCB principally is to determine or to advise consumers so that this film is rated general exhibition, GE, so it is good for all family, PG, parents, parental guidance, not suitable for 16, not suitable for children under 18, and so on. That's what we do. However, that's not the only work that we do. We also monitor the content that is also exhibited on TV, in cinema theaters, on social media. We do monitor. We also do create public awareness. So we have a bigger mandate than just...
I thought you had made progress.
No, let me come to the point that actually the reason why we emphasize on family-friendly is for their good, for the creatives. Because the films that really make money are the films that sell within that domain of family, where everybody can watch. You can play it in a matatu, you can play it in your car, you can play it in your home.
Daktari, with all respect, I might not want to make money. I might just want to create something for a few people.
And that's why we rate even some of them over 18.
Hang on to this thought.
And we allow people to watch.
I need to take a short break.
Yeah, it's not that we ban all the films that are over 18.
No. We will come back with all due respect on why do we need to police this content, and why do we have different films for different people, and the question of content. How do we expand this space so that we have things that are morally acceptable, quote unquote. You're watching With All Due Respect. Don't go too far.
This is NTV.
Please deposit this money into my account real quick.
May I know your account, please?
Michael Bakayoko. My account is 01826.
Thank you for banking with us.
It's my first time to bank. Could I ask how safe is my money? Or maybe I should just continue with my mattress banking. I think I should go back.
How are you, Mr. Bakayoko? How may I help you this time?
Well, I have come back to confirm the safety of my money. The one that I deposited earlier today.
Oh, I guess you haven't banked with us for some time. Now listen, whenever you deposit your money, be rest assured of its safety because you're a responsible bank, which is a member of the KDIC. See that sticker there?
KDIC?
KDIC is mandated by law to provide insurance for your deposits.
Now I know. No more mattress banking.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Hama ninja wanijui jo, kan kuroga mindo odijo. Bad man pana holy jo, sijishughulishi kasi ganji jo.
Right now, I can't make the same content that I used to make when I was in my early 20s because, manze, right now unapata wengine wetu ni wazazi. We got kids, we got people who we need to protect, yani, like socially and so
it's all about progression.
Exactly.
All about progression.
So,
you can't stay in the same place.
Exactly, man.
People almost felt cheated a little bit because now they're like, my hair was actually really nice. I had a conversation with my friend the other day who said she had been putting chemical in her hair like all her teenage life, and every time her hair grew out, it looked different. So she was just like, put chemical again and again and again. And then once she stopped, she was like, no, I actually love my natural hair. I love what it looks like. You know, I love how I feel.
What's Good Africa in association with White Cup Lager.
In a world of fake news, Kenyans need the truth. When Kenya's foreign debt goes through the roof. When our athletes cover our nation with glory on the global stage. When they steal from Kenyans in a pandemic. When Kenyans cannot breathe due to the high cost of living. You deserve the truth. The Daily Nation brings you the truth. We are bold for you, full of courage for you. We are resilient for you, telling Kenya's stories without fear or favor, because you deserve the truth. Daily Nation, the truth.
Kwa nini kunichenga chenga?
Miaka mitatu kule Japan.
Kidogo tu.
Usomea kudunga watu.
Utamu tu.
Jamani, tunachenga mpira ndani ya gumzo la Sato.
Sitaki mzee aliezeka, nataka kijana. Sasa ni
kazi wewe una vita na sisi niteleze.
Bila utakuota kidogo.
Ngoja. Hata mimi.
Tukijadili masuala yanayokuathiri wewe katika jamii.
Hii ni sura yangu na hii sura imeolewa. Na mambo mingi kwa ndoa ambayo hayahusiani na mapenzi peke yake.
Penda kweli lakini pia tumia bongo.
Naloogopwa kusema na wengine Frida twaliweka wazi.
Huyo mwanamume wa kizungu akaja na pupa mwisho akabakishwa na kachumbari na maavocado.
I might be a burden to her. Like she'll be feeding me like
huyo babu mimi namuelewa. Anajua anakoenda. Chiro hata afadhali ungeniuliza ngepale ndugu yangu mdogo.
Ombea.
We are Team Kenya. You win, we win. So buy any Tusker. Take your marks. Check it in your pekele. Get set. Tuma code to 29844 and win up to 80 million shillings in prizes. Cash, Team Kenya replica jerseys, and our sports shoes. Amazing Kenyan holidays. You can also leave a message of support for Team Kenya. When you win, we win. We are Team Kenya.
Kenya milele.
Excessive alcohol consumption is harmful to your health. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18 years.
Please deposit this money into my account real quick.
May I know your account, please?
Michael Bakayoko. My account is 01826.
Thank you for banking with us.
It's my first time to bank. Could I ask how safe is my money? Or maybe I should just continue with my mattress banking. I think I should go back.
How are you, Mr. Bakayoko? How may I help you this time?
Well, I have come back to confirm the safety of my money. The one that I deposited earlier today.
Oh, I guess you haven't banked with us for some time. Now listen, whenever you deposit your money, be rest assured of its safety because you're a responsible bank, which is a member of the KDIC. See that sticker there?
KDIC?
KDIC is mandated by law to provide insurance for your deposits.
Now I know. No more mattress banking.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
NTV Jioni, habari za kina, fasaha, tendeti na za kuaminika.
All right, welcome back. With all due respect, we're having the moral debate, and when we left, we just left at the point of exactly who gives KFCB and you the power to be the moral police.
A law called the Films and Stage Plays Act Cap 222 of the laws of Kenya. That's where we derive our mandate. But James, like I said, besides the mandate that is written in the law, I think there's the philosophy behind that law. And when you look at it, principally, like I've said, is to protect impressionable minds, young minds, children under 18, because that's the definition of a child in Kenya, from their minds being corrupted by dirty content. So first and foremost, our focus is on
inappropriate
children.
content.
Inappropriate. Inappropriate, dirty, well, it is used loosely to, but inappropriate, unpalatable content. Yeah. That is first and foremost what we do. And I think that's a duty we share with every parent, every adult, every responsible citizen would want their children protected. Nobody would want someone to injure their children in another way. And I always say, you see the reason why there's a body called Kenya Bureau of Standards is to ensure that when you put this water in this glass, I can take comfortably as a citizen of this country, knowing that there's a government agency that vetted this water. It's not poison. The same with what goes into the minds of Kenyans in terms of the content that they consume, especially children who have not reached the age of making choices. Adults can choose. People like Mwende, Vivian, and so on. When you reach the age of 18, this constitution and laws give you the right to choose. And so we can't determine for you. However, when we talk about films like the ones we are talking about homosexuality, Kenya determined that homosexuality is illegal. This matter went through the court, and a panel of judges was given time. It was taken actually by the LGBT community, wanting Kenya to legalize homosexuality. It was very clear what they wanted. That time, Botswana was doing the same thing. Botswana legalized. South Africa, homosexuality is legal. So it depends on the laws of the country, and that's what I want people to understand, that if actually the law changed, we would not go against the law because we're a government agency. And the people who regulate the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you want to put it that way. They are Kenyans, they pay taxes, they ought to be treated, but there's a distinction between human rights and legal processes.
Okay.
So that we do not assume that if somebody is doing content that is not acceptable to me, then they become less human. No. Yeah. I think we want to understand the human dignity that we should accord every citizen, but also how to enforce the law. When you break the law, you break the law, and all of us are equal before the law.
Dr. Awiti, how do we move this forward when we have young people, and the criticism of this is that we're not given enough space to express ourselves? And the conditions in this country are the way they are. You know, the economy essentially has collapsed in the last 10 years or so. And I feel we need to express ourselves in music. You know, we need to express ourselves in, things that are not working right. How do we get that as well?
Well, I guess it's really, there's a fine line. This is the morality kind of trajectory is fraught with all kinds of potential conflicts in terms of who determines, who defines what is wrong, what is right. And it moves across a panoply of societal value structures. But having said that, I think there is a certain understanding generally shared around profanity, around what would be blatantly immoral content from a faith or religious basis. Now, there's very little latitude for debate on that one. If you look at the general foundation of this country, it's the Abrahamic faith, as I said before. There are very, very few ambiguities in there. What Muslims would basically cringe at is what Christians would cringe at, what Hindus would cringe at. So I think what young people need to understand, there is a certain value structure that is derived from faith and religion that defines the society in which they're born. From the time they're born by their parents and how that nurturing happens in the context of society, there are certain canons that basically define who we are as a people. To define blatantly from that, then you fall foul of just moral umbrage and outrage, and people are just basically saying, what is that? And does it conform with our basic value structures and orientations? So I think this conversation, I'm sure that it's going to raise many, many debates around neoliberals, but this society is what it is. We're not Botswana, we're not South Africa. Yeah. We're not the United States of America. We're not Canada, we're not France. We are Kenyan, we are African, of African heritage. And that is critical. So I think to basically consistently kick out against that is an exercise in futility, because our constitutional structure, the way it is framed, our acknowledgement of the supremacy of God is fundamental. Now, how do you depart from that? When basically the moral context and the moral firmament is set around faith, it becomes very, very difficult.
And by the way, James, while supporting what Dr. is saying, we also appreciate society is not static.
It's not static, yeah.
It's dynamic, it's growing.
Yeah.
I worked in this media house, 1994 all the way to 2002. There are things we couldn't publish that are now all over. You can write anything about anyone in this country. It was not like so then during the Kano rule. We have progressed to a new regime where now we appreciate people are free to express themselves, because our constitution in Article 33, 34, and 35 give that freedom under the Bill of Rights. Actually, it has been protected as such.
People to express themselves.
People to express themselves, people to receive information without any barriers, and people to be able to, the media, to be able to do their work. And that's acceptable, but there is no absolute freedom. That's what we said. Because when you go to the Constitution in freedom of expression, for example, or in Article 33, it has caveats. It says, except this freedom does not extend to propaganda for war, incitement to violence, vilification of individuals, and so on and so forth. And also Article 24 even gives the latitude to change the Constitution or to limit freedoms if the society deems that to be necessary. And so as we go on in the creative, for example, there are certain conversations we need to create. And let me tell you, James, so that you, with all due respect, you also ensure that I'm well understood. The reason we are so vocal is because we don't want to take everybody to court. I've never taken a common filmmaker to court. Where we have gone to court, it was with big organizations who have money and on fundamental issues. Like I've told you about the issues of homosexuality in the film Rafiki. The common, Eric Omondi's, Bahatis of this world, and the creatives. No, but we settled. We didn't take him to court. I'm the one who withdrew that matter. You know why? Because we also appreciate that while we are there to regulate, it is the creatives who expound who push the bounds of freedom. And it's good for us as a society. It's the media will push that. Otherwise, we remain static. And so to what extent do they deviate, like Dr. said, from the societal norms? What we perceive now, our parents perceived as the right, the sense of right and wrong.
I want to go back to Mwende, just as we start winding down. Mwende, quickly, my final question before I let you go. Do you feel, as things are today, with our constitution, with our law, and with how it's been practiced so far, do you feel constrained do you feel there's an opportunity to growth? What exactly do you feel today as a creative?
There's definitely opportunity for growth there because I think Dr. Awiti has even said some of the things that I would have wanted to say about the lobbying dynamic. The thing is, but I do disagree with something that he said, where he said that it's talking against or change is an exercise in futility, because even these countries that you're giving as examples are not, did not, like you said, did not start where we are. They actually moved in terms of the laws. So it's not an exercise in futility for people to give their feedback, and also because as much as, yes, some of these the way they have been, it doesn't mean that they cannot change. And remember again that just because, yes, it has been that way, and that certain people in society feel that they need to remain that way, there are also others who are in the same society that are saying no, that we don't want it to remain that way, that we want to have more progressive thoughts and progressive. So I just wanted to challenge that. I do feel like there's a lot of room.
I really am afraid. I think the internet connection is really failing us there. I'm really sorry, but we've got your views. Let's start winding down here, and just to get Modest's point from what I got from her view, and is this feeling of being constrained, you know, this feeling that we need to push back, that we push back, Ezekiel will arrest us, you know. So how do we maintain, and young people who are watching and creatives who are watching tonight and say, look, we know where the law stands and how hard, you know, the line has been drawn. How do we advocate and say, look, there's space and place, you know, for pushing, you know, the envelope, if you like, and when it gets there, this is, you know, sort of, you know, the playing field that we have.
Well, I still believe, while I run the risk of propagating moral absolutism, I think there's a societal, there's a cultural, social, legal context that we all live in. And, you know, there's no running away from this. Whether you profess a faith or not, there is a certain foundation that links us back to a higher power, regardless of how you define that. And I think I fundamentally believe in that. So pushing the envelope really is an important conception, just theoretically, but from a practical sense, what does it really mean? What frontiers, what boundaries are you pushing? And to what extent, you know, to what end? If it is to excavate fundamental unlimited freedoms to express profanity, I think that's a problem.
Absolutely.
And we have a duty to raise the next generation that has a certain moral fiber and a moral direction. I think there's certain debates that are just absolutely difficult to have, in the sense that we might legalize swearing in public places and disseminate that widely. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. And that comes to the question of age appropriateness and protecting the young and the gullible and the impressionable. So it's critical. If you're going to create that content and use it privately, I don't think Dr. Ezekiel Mutua would have a problem. If you create it and just use it as your ringtone, it's not a problem. But once you start disseminating that, then you have to basically play by the rules.
Because of the simple reason that we regulate the public space.
Yeah.
If you bring it to the public for public consumption or exhibition, then you will have to reckon with the government, because that's the way the law operates. But allow me, James, to say, and I'm very happy with what Dr. Awiti said, we exist within a certain cultural, legal, moral framework. We were taught by our parents to respect others, not to steal, not to take away others' things. Those basic things, good manners.
It's good manners.
Yes,
our politicians.
They are part of our mosaic.
They steal every day. It's not acceptable, but we've not seen.
It's not acceptable. Why Kenyans are bitter? It's actually because of that perception that our leaders are not. They preach water, but they drink wine, and we are watching, and that's a problem. That's why we are saying, with all the power given to the creatives, is it possible to influence? Because look at Nigeria. Nollywood is growing, but I can tell you they have more restrictions than Kenya in terms of film regulation. But if you look at the Niger movies, all of them end with "To God be the glory" and so on. It speaks about their their religiosity and moral code that is premised, they believe in God. However, they are also a dynamic society with almost 200 million people, and they have all agreed that despite their differences, there is some prescription to a higher being, that they prescribe their faith to whatever they define that higher being to be.
But how do we
what we want to teach our children?
How do we tell young people, and they're the ones who are, you know, online and texting and saying all these things, that yes, we agree that there's some sort of moral, you know, sort of fiber that we must have, which profess certain things, like, you know, do not steal, right? You know, be good to your elders and that sort of thing. But our leaders are stealing.
But which leaders? Are you not a leader? Am I not a leader? Is he not a leader?
Political leaders.
The young people that I've seen. No. Political leaders. We should not always be obsessed with politicians, because they are very small percentage.
I disagree.
It is true they make the law,
I disagree.
But we elect them.
But I disagree.
We elect them. So first of all, let us look at the general morality, because they are a product of society. And if we make it look like for you to become a successful politician and for you to be covered by the media, you must insult, you must all insult, bang tables and make all manner of drama, then you are the one who is creating that kind of a politician. If you focused on James Smart, on Dr. Awiti or Ezekiel Mutua, and we have conducted ourselves well, we didn't insult each other, we have disagreed respectfully. Even the ladies and the gentlemen who came, they have said very important things. They did not necessarily support what I'm saying, but I have a lot of love for them. They agreed that, yes, we agree with the Dr. Mutua, but there is this and that we don't like about him. One of them said, I'm not even very popular. It's okay. So why do we focus on a small percentage of a group of people called politicians, whom we have created? And it's the media that has pushed that narrative, that for you to get airtime, if you come to a studio like this and you say civilized, sensible development things, you don't get covered until there's controversy, until you are saying unpalatable stuff, and that's when you are covered. You created them.
There's a bit.
I come to challenge you. Turn the cameras to the good story.
I'll have to push you back on that. Again, media is a very good punching bag for every failure in the society. That when we wake up and say,
because of the power you wield to set the agenda.
It's again. Here's the thing. There's
something called agenda setting role of the media.
The media does not control the budget of this country.
Yes,
politicians do. And we have to agree on that point. I'll not finish this show.
It is true.
Exactly.
With all
so with all due respect. Okay, let's finish this. Yes.
Let me give you a very simple analogy.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no way that you will find any one single Kenyan who will agree with the proposition that it is okay to steal somebody's chicken.
None.
But we have these relative conceptions and sometimes inadequate understanding of what really corruption does to the society, to a point where young people would say it's okay to be corrupt, but they would never say it's okay to steal somebody's chicken. So why is that such a powerful, galvanizing idea about what is wrong and what is right? It is so powerful. Don't take anybody's chickens. But
if you take the chicken and you can get away with it, it's fine.
No, not necessarily.
It's not acceptable in any society.
And if you take somebody's chicken, we may not get away with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's the notion...
Final thoughts, 30 seconds, inshallah.
It's the idea of othering and distancing from government and responsibility when it comes to a point where accountability and ownership is not very clear. We have not come to understand that the money that politicians allegedly steal is our taxpayers' money.
Yes.
The day we get outraged by that conception, you will see this country change. When I know that I work so hard to put into the government coffers my hard-earned tax money, then somebody takes it and there are no consequences. So I think we need to start changing those perceptions.
Right.
And as Ezekiel says, the media is important in helping shaping and molding those perceptions.
Absolutely.
30 seconds or less.
James, with all due respect, we need to speak about our software. The hardware is good, we have done a lot, but we need to create a balance where the software of our morality becomes a conversation. That's what the Asian Tigers did, that's what Malaysia did, that's what Singapore did. That's where countries that have progressed, they started by building a moral foundation. And the media has a role to play. The arts, entertainment, and media sectors are that powerful in shaping opinion and presenting issues and analyzing them for people.
Absolutely.
Let us not hide our heads under the sun, because ultimately, when we create a catch of anything goes, everybody suffers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Awiti.
Thank you, James.
Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. And all my guests who are on tonight, and all you on social media and on text messages, we thank you very much for your company tonight. With all due respect, please do have a good night. We'll do this all over again. Same time, same station. My name is James Matt. Have a lovely night.